Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about technology gaming activities. In 3 points I would like to disclose today: gaming technology, pedagogical games, and educational games. Game is a great way to organize human activities. This is an innovative method that helps to make the learning process rich and interesting. Game learning technologies are a given situation based on social experience. Having placed a person in certain circumstances, it turns out to develop in him and her new qualities that are not characteristic of him or her, and to instill control over his or her behavior. In society, it's customary to distinguish several main functions derived from the use of game technology. They are called main missions. The first one, entertaining. It aims to arouse interest in the process, to entertain and inspire. The second function, communicative. This is a great field for practicing basic skills. The goal of the assignment is conversation leading to a common goal. Games therapeutical, projection of difficulties in different areas into a given situation. Recognition, obsession with self-study in the course of play activities. Corrective, in the process players try to find possible options for the development of events, introduce positive change in the situation. Inter-ethnic communication is based on the social and cultural values of mankind. In the literature, according to the games at the pedagogical university, according to Akhmetov, 3 terms can be found: educational games, didactic games, and pedagogical games. An educational game is a type of activity in which a system of educational skills related to the future profession is formed, according to Berdyahanova. It contains training in certain professions and training various specialists, as well as the formation and correction of social behavior. The didactic game, according to Semyonova, carries out independent cognitive actions to solve pedagogical tasks during which future teachers develop professional, including communicative skills. Pedagogical game is an imitation of the teacher's real activity in those and other artificially recreated situations, or as specially organized student activity, imitating a real live real pedagogical process combining both educational and game elements. In contrast to games, in general, pedagogical game has an essential feature, a clearly defined goal of learning, and the corresponding pedagogical result, which can be clearly identified and characterized by an educational and instructive orientation. The gaming form of classes is created in the classroom using game techniques that act as a means of motivating, stimulating students to learning activities. The place and role of game technology in the learning process, the combination of game in the learning elements largely depend on the teacher's understanding of the functions and classification of pedagogical games. Talking about classifications of games, first of all, the games should be divided by type of activity into physical, motor, intellectual, mental, labor, social, psychological. According to the nature of the pedagogical process, the following groups of games are distinguished: teaching, training, controlling, and generalizing. The second group, cognitive, upbringing, developing. The third, reproductive, productive, creative. And the last one, communicative, diagnostic, career guidance, psychotechnical. The typology of pedagogical games is extensive in terms of the nature of the game methodology. Silivko identified the most important of the types used: subject, plot, it means action story, role-playing, imitational, dramatization games. According to the subject area, games are distinguished in all disciplines: mathematical, linguistic, historical, literary, and so on. And finally, the specificity of the gaming technology is largely determined by the gaming environment. They distinguish between games with and without object, board, indoor, outdoor, on the ground, computer, technical aids, as well as the various vehicles. The structure of educational game as an activity harmoniously includes planning, goal setting, the implementation of the intended goal, and analysis of the results in which the student fully realizes him or herself as a subject. Motivation of play activity is provided by its voluntariness, choice, and elements of competition among students, satisfaction of needs for self-affirmation and self-realization. The structure of an educational game as a learning process includes, according to Usova, the roles assumed by students, game actions as a means of realizing these roles, the replacements of real actions and things with game and conditional ones, real relationships between the players, the plot is real of reality which are conditionally reproduced in the educational game. A productive educational game is an illustration of actions, helps students to determine the rules, makes it possible to immediately apply them in practice, and in case of failure, repeat everything again and again until they are completely mastered and justify the use of educational games and creative tasks as a means of visualization and as an exercise. The objectives that the teacher offers to the students in the education game involve not only the formation of certain new qualities, skills, and abilities, but also the actualization of the already acquired knowledge and developed foreign language skills and abilities. This fact allows us to conclude that the educational game is, among the other things, a means of control. Currently, in the methodological literature, there is a great number of classification and systematize the types of educational games in accordance with one or another classification criterion. For example, Vygotsky described typologies based on the goals and objectives of the educational game, forms of conducting, the way of organization, and the number of participants. According to the goals and objectives of teaching educational games, using English lessons can be divided into language aspect and speech. Language games help students learn various aspects of the language: phonetics, vocabulary, grammar, syntax, stylistics. Can be divided into phonetic, lexical, grammatical, syntactic, stylistic, and so on. Language games contribute to the activation of the students in the classroom, develop their speech initiative. It's important to emphasize that the proposed division of the educational games into aspect games is rather arbitrary, since the aspects are closely interrelated in the language. However, this or that game has a dominant practical goal in accordance with which one or another type of language game is distinguished. Speech games are aimed at developing skills in certain types of speech activity. Each type of speech activity corresponds to a certain type of educational game aimed at teaching listening, teaching monologue, dialogical speech, teaching reading, and teaching writing. According to the method of organizing games, there are computer, non-computer, written and oral, with and without support, imitation modeling and creative, and etc. According to the degree of complexity of the action performed, all education games are divided into simple, monosituational, and complex, polysituational, and according to the duration they are divided into long and short ones. According to the quantitative staff of the participants, the games are divided into individual, pair, group, team, or collective. Games are aimed at developing skills in certain types of speech activity. Obviously, each type of speech activity will correspond to a certain type of educational game. That's game aimed at teaching listening, teaching speaking. It may be monologue speech, dialogue speech, teaching reading, and teaching writing. In a lesson, there are not always real conditions necessary for communication within a certain topic. Therefore, it's necessary to create artificial conditions that are as close as possible to natural conditions, which will stimulate the students' appropriate and characteristic speech utterances and behavior. In addition, the games used in English lessons are aimed at the formation of language skills and abilities are divided in the following groups according to the theory of Stroning. They are grammar games, vocabulary, phonetic games, spelling, and creative games. Thus, summarizing the above, we can conclude that currently there are many pedagogical and otherwise educational games that are given by the teacher when learning new material. The use of such games in English lessons is an extremely important methodological technique that helps the teacher to deeper reveal the personal potential of each student, developing him or her diligence, activity independence, initiative, the ability to work in a team, maintain and strengthen educational motivation.